Security will escort you out. 5 words. Spoken without hesitation, without eye contact, without the slightest tremor of doubt. Connor Hayes didn't even glance up from her phone screen. Her thumb kept scrolling, pausing only to tap something that made her mouth twitch into what might have been a smile. Maybe she was ordering lunch. Maybe she was texting her PR team about how she was streamlining operations. Whatever it was, it mattered more to her than looking at the woman she was firing. I stood there, hands loose at my sides, watching her manicured nail tap 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 against the glass. The conference room smelled like expensive coffee and desperation. Behind me, I could feel the shift in the air as 2 security guards moved closer to the door. Not threatening, just present. Waiting for the inevitable scene, the pleading, the breakdown. They were going to be disappointed. Because Connor Hayes, in all her Harvard MBA glory, in all her TED Talk wisdom about disrupting legacy thinking, had made one critical error. She hadn't read the fine print. Not in the architectural documentation I'd filed 3 years ago. Not in the governance protocols I'd embedded into every digital system this company relied on. And definitely not on the badge currently sitting in my jacket pocket. Badge H009. My badge. I reached into my pocket slowly, deliberately. Not for drama. Just because I knew what was about to happen and I wanted to remember every second of it. My fingers closed around the plastic card, still warm from being pressed against my ribs. I pulled it out and turned not to Connor, but to the man seated 2 chairs to her left. Cole Preston. Chief Legal Counsel. 60-something, gray temples, expensive suit that looked like it came with its own insurance policy. He was the only person in the room who'd been here longer than I had. The only one who might remember. I held the badge out to him. He took it reflexively, the way you do when someone hands you something in a meeting. His eyes barely registered it at first. Just another piece of company property being returned by another expendable employee. He glanced down, started to set it on the table. Then he froze. His face didn't just change. It drained. All the color, all the composure, everything that made Cole Preston look like a man who'd spent 40 years navigating corporate landmines. Gone. In its place was something I'd only seen once before, during the Callaway merger crisis when someone nearly triggered an SEC investigation by accident. Pure, unfiltered dread. Ms. Hayes, he said, his voice tight and thin like a wire about to snap. Connor kept scrolling. Ms. Hayes, he repeated louder now. Sharp enough that even she couldn't ignore it. She looked up finally. Annoyed. What? Cole held up the badge between 2 fingers like it was radioactive. We need to stop this. Right now. Get compliance on the phone. Get the board chair. He stopped himself, swallowed hard. Get forensics on this badge immediately. The room went quiet. Not the comfortable quiet of people waiting for a meeting to end. The suffocating quiet of people realizing something has gone very, very wrong. Connor's expression shifted from annoyance to confusion. Cole, what are you talking about? He didn't answer. He was staring at the badge, then at me, then back at the badge. His lips moved slightly like he was doing mental math and kept getting an answer he didn't like. One of the security guards cleared his throat. Should we, Don't move, Cole said, still not looking at them. Nobody moves. Nobody leaves. Connor's jaw tightened. I could see her recalculating, trying to regain control of a situation that was sliding away from her faster than she could track. Cole, I don't know what you think you're seeing, but... Badge 009, he interrupted, his voice barely above a whisper. Primary root access. Tier 1 governance credential. Linked to Protocol 7. He looked at me again, and this time there was something else in his eyes. Not quite respect. Not quite fear. Something in between. You built Protocol 7, he said. It wasn't a question. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Connor was staring at both of us now, her phone finally forgotten on the table. Someone want to explain what's happening? Cole set the badge down carefully like it might explode. Then he opened his laptop, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. I watched the light from the screen reflect off his glasses as line after line of text populated. His breathing got shallower with each scroll. Ms. Hayes, he said slowly, did you read the governance documentation I sent you during onboarding? I skimmed it, Connor said defensively. It was 300 pages of technical. Page 174. Section 12, subsection C. Credential continuity protocols. Cole turned the laptop toward her. Specifically, the provisions regarding Tier 1 root access termination. Connor leaned forward, squinting at the screen. I watched her eyes move left to right, then stop. Then move again, slower this time. Her face went pale. This can't be right, she said. It's filed with the board, Cole said. Has been since before you were hired. It's ratified. It's legally binding. And you just violated it. Connor looked at me for the first time since I'd walked into the room. Really looked at me. Not through me, not past me. At me. What does this mean? She asked. Cole answered before I could. It means every system access point tied to executive authorization just went into lockdown. It means the quarterly earnings call scheduled for tomorrow can't proceed without board verification, which can't happen without a Tier 1 credential sign-off. It means... He stopped, closed his eyes. It means we're locked out of our own company, he finished. And the only person who can unlock it is standing right in front of you. Connor's hand moved toward her phone. Cole's hand shot out and caught her wrist. Don't, he said. Don't touch anything. Don't send any messages. Don't make this worse. She jerked her hand back, breathing hard. This is insane. She's IT. She's support staff. She's the architect, Cole said quietly. And you just tried to delete the blueprint while the building was still standing. The security guards hadn't moved. They were looking at each other now, silently communicating the way people do when they realize they've walked into something way above their pay grade. Connor stood up, chair scraping against the floor. Fix it. I can't, Cole said. Then get someone who can. There is no one else. He picked up the badge again, held it up. This isn't just an ID card. It's a cryptographic key embedded in the company's core infrastructure. Every authorization chain, every compliance verification, every board-level transaction, it all routes through this. And according to Protocol 7, if it's terminated without proper board authorization. He trailed off. Connor finished for him. What happens? Total system lockdown, I said. My first words since walking into the room. Everyone turned to look at me. Transaction freezes, I continued, voice calm and level. Compliance failures. Automated SEC notifications. The whole thing cascades in about 6 hours. Maybe less if someone tries to force an override. Connor's face went from pale to flushed. You built a trap. I built a safeguard, I corrected. The board approved it. 3 years ago, after the Callaway merger almost collapsed because someone managed to spoof executive credentials. They wanted something that couldn't be hacked, couldn't be bypassed, couldn't be compromised by anyone, including the CEO. And you just happened to give yourself that power? They gave it to me, I said. I wrote the proposal. The board voted on it unanimously. It's in the minutes. Cole can show you. Cole nodded slowly. She's right. It was presented as an emergency governance measure. The board thought it was brilliant. And no one thought to tell me this? Connor's voice was rising now, losing that careful CEO composure. It was in your onboarding materials, Cole said. Page 174. Connor stared at him. Then at me. Then at the badge on the table. How much? She asked quietly. I'm sorry. How much do you want? To fix this. To unlock whatever you locked. Name your price. I almost smiled. Almost. It's not about money. Everything's about money. Not this. Connor's jaw worked. She looked like she wanted to flip the table. Instead, she took a breath, smoothed her jacket and tried a different approach. Look, she said, voice dropping into something that might have been meant to sound reasonable. I think we got off on the wrong foot. Clearly there's been a miscommunication. Why don't we all sit down and... No, I said. Excuse me. I don't want to sit down. I don't want to negotiate. I want you to follow the protocol you violated. Which is? Board authorization, Cole said. Unanimous vote. All 12 members. And it has to be conducted through proper channels with full documentation and... How long will that take? Connor interrupted. 3 days. Minimum. If we can even get quorum, which, he checked his watch, is going to be difficult considering half the board is currently overseas. Connor laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. So we're just supposed to sit here with our thumbs up our asses while she holds the company hostage? I'm not holding anything hostage, I said. I'm just standing here. Your systems are doing exactly what they were designed to do when someone tries to remove a Tier 1 credential without authorization. This isn't a bug. It's a feature. You planned this. I planned for this, I corrected. 3 years ago. Because I knew eventually someone like you would show up. Someone who thinks institutional knowledge is dead weight. Someone who mistakes longevity for obsolescence. Someone who moves fast and breaks things without bothering to check what those things actually do. Connor's hands clenched into fists. You smug. Careful, Cole warned. Anything you say right now is on record. This room has transcription. Connor closed her mouth. Breathed through her nose. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. What do you want? I want you to understand something, I said. I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be the failsafe. But the board made a choice 3 years ago and you inherited the consequences of that choice. You can be angry about it. You can call it a trap or blackmail or whatever helps you sleep at night. But the facts are simple. You tried to fire me without following procedure. And now you're going to have to explain to the board why the company's in lockdown mode 24 hours before earnings. They'll blame you. Maybe. But I have documentation. 3 years worth. Every email, every memo, every board meeting where Protocol 7 was discussed and approved. I have timestamps and signatures and audit trails that show exactly what I built and why I built it. What do you have? Silence. Connor sat down heavily. She looked smaller now. Deflated. Cole closed his laptop. I need to make some calls. Do what you have to do, Connor said distantly. He stood, gathered his things and paused at the door. Ms. Holt. I looked at him. For what it's worth, he said, I tried to warn her. About the protocols. About you. She didn't want to hear it. I know, I said. He nodded and left. The security guards looked at Connor. She waved them off tiredly. Go. Just, go. They left too, moving quickly like they couldn't get out fast enough. Which left just me and Connor Hayes, CEO of Zerix Dynamics. Disruptor. Innovator. The woman who was going to drag us into the future whether we liked it or not. She looked at me. Really looked at me. You must hate me, she said. I don't know you well enough to hate you, I replied. But I don't respect you. You came in here with all the answers and none of the questions. You cut people who'd been here for decades because they didn't fit your vision. You brought in consultants who'd never worked in our industry and let them make decisions about systems they didn't understand. And when someone tried to warn you that you were moving too fast. You're talking about Chase. I'm talking about a lot of people. Chase was just the most recent. Connor rubbed her face. He was dead weight. He was the only person in supply chain who understood our legacy vendor contracts. The ones that predate the digital system. The ones that are still legally binding. We don't need legacy anything. You do when those contracts include penalty clauses for early termination. Which they do. Which Chase would have told you if you'd asked. But you didn't ask. You just cut him loose and figured you'd deal with the consequences later. Connor was quiet for a long moment. I was brought here to fix this place, she said finally. The board told me Zerix was dying. Bloated. Inefficient. They said we needed fresh blood. New ideas. And what did they say about the old blood? That it was in the way. I nodded. So you cleared the path. Problem is, some of that old blood was holding things up. Important things. And now that it's gone. Everything collapses, Connor finished. That's what you're saying. That's what I'm watching happen. She stood up, walked to the window. Outside, the city sprawled in all directions. Glass and steel and ambition. I'm not going to survive this, she said quietly. Am I? I didn't answer. Didn't need to. Connor turned back to me. What happens now? Now you call the board. You explain what happened. And you hope they're more forgiving than you've been. And you? I'll do whatever they ask me to do. If they want to reverse the termination and reinstate me, fine. If they want to negotiate a settlement, fine. If they want to keep Protocol 7 active and bring me on as an external consultant. I shrugged. That's fine too. You're going to bleed us dry. I'm going to be fairly compensated for the position you put me in. Connor laughed bitterly. Fair. Right. She grabbed her phone, scrolled through contacts and stopped. Stared at the screen. They're going to ask me why I didn't read the documentation, she said. Probably. What should I tell them? The truth, I said. That you thought you knew better. That you were so focused on the future you forgot to check the foundation. That you assumed the people who built this place didn't know what they were doing. And what will they say? That you're fired. Connor looked at me. You sound pretty confident about that. I've seen this before, I said. Difference? Same problem. He tried to gut the finance team without understanding the audit protocols. Lasted 4 months. And let me guess, you were the one who took him down too. I didn't take him down. He took himself down. I just maintained the systems he tried to break. Connor slumped back into her chair. She looked exhausted. Defeated. You know what the worst part is? She asked. What? I actually believed I could make a difference here. I thought I could turn Zerix into something special. Something people would talk about. They'll talk about it, I said. Just not the way you wanted. She closed her eyes. Get out. I thought security was supposed to escort me. I don't care. Just go. Please. I picked up my badge from the table. Cole had left it there probably on purpose. I turned it over in my hand, felt the familiar weight of it. For what it's worth, I said, you weren't entirely wrong. Zerix does need to change. We are bloated in places. We do have inefficiencies. But change doesn't mean destruction. And efficiency doesn't mean gutting everything that came before. Connor didn't open her eyes. Thanks for the advice. You're welcome. I walked to the door, paused. Connor. What? Next time you fire someone, look up. At least pretend you give a damn. I left before she could respond. The hallway was empty. No security guards, no assistants, no one. I walked to the elevator, pressed the button and waited. The doors opened with a soft chime. I stepped inside and turned around just as I heard rapid footsteps. Cole rounded the corner, slightly out of breath. Hold the elevator, he called. I hit the button. He slipped inside just as the door started to close. We stood in silence for a moment as the elevator descended. The board wants to meet with you, Cole said. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. All of them. Everyone who's local. The rest will call in. They want a full briefing on Protocol 7 and what it'll take to resolve this. Resolve? I asked. You mean unlock? I mean resolve, Cole repeated. They're not happy with Connor. This isn't the first issue. Just the biggest. How long has she been here? 7 months. Started strong. Then. He made a gesture that suggested things spiraling out of control. Let me guess. She promised the board she'd cut costs by 30% in the first year. Cole's silence was answer enough. And they believed her. They wanted to believe her, Cole corrected. Zerix's margins have been shrinking. Competitors are moving faster. The board panicked and brought in someone who promised quick fixes. Quick fixes for slow problems, I said. Exactly. The elevator reached the lobby. The doors opened. I stepped out, then turned back. Cole. Yeah. How much trouble am I in? He considered the question. Legally? None. Everything you did was by the book. Ethically? He smiled slightly. I'd say you're going to come out of this just fine. And Connor? Connor's going to come out of this with a severance package and a non-disclosure agreement. I nodded. Sit back. The doors started to close. Audrey. Cole called. The doors stopped. I looked at him. That Protocol 7 documentation, he said. The 300 pages Connor didn't read? I wrote half of it. I know exactly how thorough you were. How careful. The board is going to see that tomorrow. They're going to see what you built and why you built it. And they're going to remember that you tried to warn them. Multiple times. I have the emails, I said. I know. So do I. 17 separate warnings over the last 6 months about Connor's approach. All documented. All time-stamped. All ignored. So why are you telling me this? Because tomorrow when you walk into that boardroom you need to know you're not on trial. Connor is. You're just a witness. The doors closed. I stood in the lobby for a moment, processing. Around me people moved with purpose. Employees heading to meetings, grabbing coffee, talking on phones. Normal workday sounds. Normal workday energy. None of them knew what was happening 17 floors up. The chaos. The panic. The slow realization that the company they worked for was locked out of its own systems. They'd find out soon enough. I walked toward the exit, badge still in my hand. At the security desk, the guard looked up. "Evening, Miss Holt," he said. "Evening, Danny. Heading out early today?" Something like that. He glanced at the badge in my hand. You need me to deactivate that?" I looked down at it. Badge H009. Still active. Still pulsing with the authority it had carried for the last 3 years. "No," I said. "I think I'll hold on to it for now." Danny nodded. "Whatever you say." I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out onto the street. The afternoon sun was bright, warm. Traffic hummed past. Somewhere a siren wailed. My phone buzzed. Text message. Unknown number. "This is Robert Crane. Board chair. Cole tells me you'll be joining us tomorrow. Looking forward to the conversation. We have a lot to discuss." I typed back, "I'll be there." His response came immediately. "Bring documentation. All of it. Already planned on it." "Good. One more thing. Don't sign anything Connor or her team sends you tonight. Forward it to me instead." "Understood. See you tomorrow." I pocketed my phone and started walking. Not toward the subway. Not toward home. Just walking, letting my thoughts settle. 3 years ago, when I'd first proposed Protocol 7, the board had been skeptical. They understood the need for safeguards, but giving that much power to a single person, especially someone who wasn't in the C-suite, felt risky. I'd spent 6 weeks building the case. Showing them the vulnerabilities in the existing system. Walking them through the nightmare scenarios. Demonstrating how a properly designed failsafe could prevent catastrophic breaches. And then I'd said something that seemed to resonate with them. "You're not giving power to me. You're giving power to the protocol. I'm just the key holder. And if I ever abuse that, the same system that protects you from external threats will protect you from me." They'd voted unanimously. Robert Crane had shaken my hand afterward and said, "Let's hope we never have to use this." "Let's hope," I'd agreed. 3 years. Protocol 7 had sat dormant, a loaded gun no one thought would ever be fired. And then Connor Hayes walked through the door with her disruption and her efficiency metrics and her absolute certainty that everything old was worthless. And she'd pulled the trigger without even realizing the gun was pointed at her. My phone buzzed again. This time a call. I checked the screen. Chase Donovan. The supply chain guy Connor had fired 3 weeks ago. I answered. "Hey. Audrey. Jesus. I just heard." "Heard what?" "That you're out. That Connor fired you this afternoon. News travels fast. Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Fine? Audrey, she just—" "I know what she did," I interrupted. "And trust me, she's regretting it." Silence on the other end. "Then, what did you do?" "Nothing. Yet." "That sounds ominous." "It's not. It's just complicated." "Do you need anything? A lawyer? A reference?" "I still know people." "I appreciate it, Chase. Really. But I'm good." "You're sure?" "I'm sure. Actually, you might want to keep your calendar open next week." "Why?" "Because there might be some positions opening up. Supply chain specifically." Long pause. "Audrey. Just keep your calendar open." "Hey. But if you need anything at all, you'll be the first person I call," I promised. We said goodbye. I kept walking. By the time I reached the park, the sun was starting to set. I found a bench and sat watching joggers and dog walkers and people who didn't have to worry about corporate governance protocols or CEO meltdowns. My phone buzzed with emails. I ignored them. Whatever Connor's team was sending could wait until I'd talked to Cole or Robert Crane. Instead, I pulled up the documentation folder I'd been maintaining for 3 years. Every email. Every warning. Every time I'd raised concerns about security, about protocols, about the dangers of moving too fast without understanding the systems we were changing. 17 warnings. Just like Cole said. Each one polite. Professional. Each one ignored. I scrolled to the bottom of the folder to a document I'd created but never shared. A contingency plan titled, Protocol 7 Activation Scenarios. I'd written it the day after the board approved the system. Just in case. Just to be prepared. The document outlined exactly what would happen if someone tried to terminate my access improperly. The cascade of lockdowns. The compliance failures. The notifications. The timeline. I'd predicted it would take approximately 6 hours for the full impact to manifest. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Connor had fired me at 11:23 a.m. 5 hours and 24 minutes ago. I opened my laptop connected to the secure VPN and pulled up the system status dashboard. The one only Tier 1 credentials could access. Red alerts everywhere. Transaction processing. Locked board verification. Failed compliance status. Pending review SC notification. Sent executive access. Restricted emergency protocols. Active. And at the bottom in bold red letters. System lockdown initiated. Protocol 7 active contact primary root administrator for resolution. I closed the laptop. Right on schedule. The next morning I arrived at Zerix Dynamics at 8:45 a.m. 15 minutes early. The lobby was quieter than usual. Danny at the security desk looked up, recognized me and waved me through without the usual badge scan. "Conference room A," he said. "They're expecting you." "Thanks, Danny." I took the elevator to 17. The executive floor. I'd only been up here a handful of times in my career. Usually for major presentations or board meetings. The elevator doors opened directly into a reception area. Marble floors. Abstract art. Floor-to-ceiling windows with a view that probably cost more than my annual salary. A woman I didn't recognize stood as I approached. "Ms. Holt." "That's me. I'm Emma. Mr. Crane's executive assistant. The board is ready for you." She led me down a hallway past closed office doors, to a large conference room at the end. Double doors. Frosted glass. Emma opened them. Inside, 12 people sat around a massive table. I recognized most of them from photos in the annual report. Board members. The people who actually ran Zerix Dynamics, or at least thought they did. Robert Crane sat at the head of the table. Early 60s, sharp eyes, expensive suit. He stood as I entered. "Ms. Holt. Thank you for coming." "Mr. Crane." He gestured to an empty chair. "Please. Sit." I sat. Placed my laptop bag on the table. Folded my hands and waited. Robert looked around the room. "I think everyone here knows why we're meeting. Yesterday at approximately 11:23 a.m., Ms. Hayes terminated Ms. Holt's employment without following the proper governance protocols outlined in Section 12, subsection C of our corporate charter. As a result, Protocol 7 was activated, resulting in a complete system lockdown." He turned to me. "Ms. Holt, can you walk us through exactly what Protocol 7 is and what it does?" I opened my laptop, pulled up a presentation I'd prepared last night. Protocol 7 is a failsafe designed to prevent unauthorized access to critical company systems. It was approved by this board 3 years ago in response to the Callaway merger crisis. I clicked to the next slide. The protocol designates certain credentials as Tier 1 root access. These credentials are tied to critical governance functions, board verification, compliance reporting, financial transaction authorization, and executive system access. Next slide. My credential, badge H009, was designated as the primary Tier 1 root access by board vote on March 14, 3 years ago. The vote was unanimous. I looked around the room. A few nods. They remembered. The protocol includes specific provisions for how these credentials can be modified or terminated. Any changes require board authorization. Not CEO authorization. Board authorization. Specifically, a unanimous vote of all 12 members. Another slide. If a Tier 1 credential is terminated without proper authorization, the system automatically initiates a lockdown. All executive access is restricted. All board-level transactions are frozen. All compliance reporting is flagged for review. And an automated notification is sent to the SEC. Silence in the room. "How long does the lockdown last?" one of the board members asked. I didn't remember her name. "Until proper authorization is restored," I said. Which means either reinstating the terminated credential or going through the full board process to designate a replacement. How long would that take? The full process? Minimum 3 days. Probably longer given the circumstances. More silence. Robert leaned back in his chair. "Ms. Hayes claims she wasn't aware of these protocols. The protocols were included in her onboarding materials, I said. Page 174. I can provide timestamps showing when those materials were sent and when they were accessed. She says she skimmed them. That's between her and the board, I said. My job was to document the protocols and ensure they functioned as designed. Which they did. Another board member spoke up. Older man, white hair. Some might argue you had a responsibility to remind Ms. Hayes about these protocols. To make sure she understood them before she took any action. I did, I said calmly. I pulled up another document. On January 12th, I sent an email to Ms. Hayes outlining critical governance protocols she should review. Protocol 7 was listed as Item 3. On February 3rd, I sent a follow-up. On March 19th, I requested a meeting to discuss governance procedures. The meeting was declined. I turned the laptop so they could see the screen. I have 17 documented attempts to communicate protocol information to Ms. Hayes or her team over the past 6 months. All were either ignored or dismissed. The older man sat back, quiet. Robert looked at Cole, who sat 2 seats down. Cole, from a legal perspective, where do we stand? Cole opened his own laptop. Ms. Holt acted entirely within the parameters of her employment contract and the protocols established by this board. Ms. Hayes violated those protocols by terminating a Tier 1 credential without authorization. As a result, we're facing potential compliance violations, shareholder complications, and a significant operational disruption. Can we reverse it? Yes. We have 3 options. Cole counted on his fingers. 1. Reinstate Ms. Holt immediately and restore her access. The lockdown ends within an hour. 2. Formally authorize her termination through proper board vote, then go through the process of designating a new Tier 1 credential holder. Takes it minimum 3 days, probably more. 3. Negotiate a settlement with Ms. Holt that includes her temporarily unlocking the systems while we transition to a new credential holder. What does Ms. Holt want? Robert asked, looking at me. I want what's fair, I said. I built Protocol 7 because the board asked me to. I maintained it for 3 years. I tried to warn Ms. Hayes multiple times about governance procedures. And then she fired me without proper authorization while I was trying to do my job. So what's fair? I pulled out a document, slid it across the table. I want my position reinstated at my previous salary. I want a formal apology from Ms. Hayes acknowledging the protocol violation. And I want a consulting contract to serve as Protocol 7 administrator for the next 5 years, with an option to extend. How much for the consulting contract? One of the board members asked. $200,000 annually. Separate from my salary. Murmurs around the table. That's generous compared to what you could ask for, Robert noted. I'm not interested in bleeding the company dry, I said. I'm interested in being treated with respect. If you want someone who'll hold you hostage every time there's a dispute, find someone else. But if you want someone who'll maintain the systems and protect the company the way I've been doing for the last decade, then we have a deal. Robert looked around the table. Thoughts? I say we take it, someone said. Get the systems unlocked. Deal with Connor later. Agreed. We don't have much choice. Can we negotiate the consulting fee down? Are you kidding? Do you know what she could ask for right now? $200,000 is nothing. The discussion went on for another 10 minutes. Finally, Robert called for a vote. All in favor of reinstating Ms. Holt immediately and accepting her consulting proposal? 12 hands went up. Unanimous. Robert smiled slightly. Motion passes. Welcome back, Ms. Holt. Thank you. Now, Robert continued, let's talk about Ms. Hayes. They didn't fire Connor immediately. That would have looked bad. Instead, they put her on administrative leave pending internal review. Corporate speak for, we're working out the severance package. By the end of the week, she was gone. Officially, she was pursuing other opportunities. Unofficially, she'd become a cautionary tale about what happens when you move fast and break things that shouldn't be broken. I was reinstated on Tuesday afternoon. By Wednesday morning, all systems were back online. The SEC notification was explained as a procedural compliance check and closed without further investigation. The earnings call was rescheduled and went off without incident. And on Friday, I signed a consulting contract that would pay me $200,000 a year for the next 5 years, with minimal actual work required beyond maintaining Protocol 7 and providing occasional governance advice. Not a bad outcome for someone who'd been fired less than a week earlier. Chase called me the following Monday. "You were right," he said. "They just offered me my job back. With a raise. Congratulations. Did you have something to do with this?" I may have mentioned to the board that cutting supply chain expertise was a bad idea. And that you specifically were someone worth keeping around. Audrey. Don't mention it. Seriously. Just come back and do good work.